Well, everybody, after years of prototypes, patent leaks, and rumors, it looks like Apple is finally coming out with their own version of a foldable iPhone in 2026. So in this video, we're going to discuss everything we know because we actually know a lot now at this point since it's been rumored for pretty much the past 5 years. So without further ado, let's talk all things Apple Foldable or iPhone Fold, whatever you want to call it, because this form factor is something that I liked a lot more than I thought I would. Let's get into it. But before we continue, if you enjoy watching videos like this one, consider subscribing to the channel, especially if you want to hear about some of those future products that are coming down the pipeline. But now let's talk about the first thing, which is what we know. So you're probably thinking to yourself, why now? Why is 2026 the year that Apple's coming out with their own foldable iPhone? And it's because honestly, the product category has finally matured. Especially here in the US, we've had 7 iterations of this Samsung Fold, and this is the first year where things kind of seem to be clicking. The hinge durability, the screen design, the thinness of it all the different pieces are kind of coming into place, and of course, from a supply chain standpoint and a distribution standpoint, Apple knows what they're doing, so they probably now have it all set in stone as to what they want their iPhone Fold to look like, feel like, and act like moving forward. And here at 9 to 5 Mac, we've been tracking the progress of this foldable phone, and it looks like Apple's been waiting on making sure that all the different pieces have come into place. For example, they wanted to have a crease-free OLED, which is a big deal for the overall experience. They wanted to make sure the hinge lasted a long time, so hinge longevity was a huge deal in an Apple Foldable. Display reliability, they don't want things cracking or bending or being pinched or getting poked, because again, the inner display is going to be a little bit of a different material than the front display. And then lastly, they had to figure out a cost situation, because of course, Apple's going to do this the way that Apple knows how to do it, whereas that they're not going to be first to anything, but they're probably going to be the best one at doing a foldable phone, but that usually comes at a high point price, so they wanted to make sure they had cost stabilization down to a fact. So what are we dealing with from a display, design, and form factor standpoint? So we're looking at about a 7-inch inner display, so it's going to be very iPad mini-like. The iPad mini right now is 8.3 inches diagonally, and I do think it's going to be kind of that style foldable, as opposed to being a square foldable that Samsung is doing right now with their Fold 7. It's going to be a little bit of a longer one and a book style foldable in my opinion, but we're going to have a 5.5-inch external display, which will be a little bit smaller than what we're used to, especially with the 6.3-inch and larger iPhone displays in 2025. And from the design approach, this is going to be more of a phone that turns into a tablet versus a phone that folds in half. So think more Fold 7 and Pixel Fold 10 versus the Samsung Flip, because again, Apple wants to make this more so a phone that turns into an iPad as opposed to a phone that turns and just gets smaller in your pocket. Apple will be focusing on making this thing lightweight, so they're going to have a titanium outer shell. Let's see what that does from a heat dissipation standpoint, but they're going to focus on lightweight versus anything else. And the new hinge architecture is that it's going to use a composite metal and carbon structure, which will reduce the crease visibility and improve all that dust resistance, which is going to be very important in that crease. And Apple seems to have figured out a way to have the display itself be creaseless, which is something nobody's been able to do. And they're going to be doing that with a hybrid OLED and a reinforced UTG panel, which is going to, again, make this thing as creaseless as possible. Now, it remains yet to be seen if it's going to be actually creaseless or just so creaseless that Apple's stating that it is. We'll see, obviously, when that comes in 2026. And now let's talk about price, because this thing will not be cheap. Again, think about it, you are getting pretty much a pro-level iPhone in combination with at least an iPad mini, but probably more so an iPad mini Pro because of all the display tech. It's definitely going to be 120 Hz and give you ProMotion and things like that. But it's looking like it's going to be about $2,400 as a starting price, which is even higher than that anticipated $2,000 price point. But for comparison's sake, if you look at the Galaxy Z Fold, that one is $2,000 for the entry-level one. If you look at the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, that's about $1,800. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is $1,200, so it'll be pretty much double the price of a 17 Pro Max, which could be a tough pill to swallow, but let's see exactly what Apple ends up doing with this iPhone. And then another thing to consider here is that Apple's actually not going to be calling this an iPhone Fold. We've had leaks and rumors about how Apple's going to structure their iPhone lineup moving forward, because now we have the iPhone Air, we still have the Pro level models, we still have the entry level iPhone like the regular one, we also have the iPhone SE, and Apple's going to be stagnating the release schedule of these phones. So instead of being an iPhone Fold, this should be called an iPhone Ultra, and that's what most people are talking about these days, because again, Apple wants to reserve the right to maybe move it and move the form factor in the product category, but having to change the name of the actual iPhone. Now, one of the most important things of the foldable experience, and what Samsung has pretty much perfected over the 7 years of their foldables, is going to be the UI experience from the front screen to the middle screen or the inside screen, because again, the idea is to have as much continuity as possible. So if you have something going on your front screen and you open it up, you should have the better, bigger version of what's going on that front screen for most, if not all, of the applications. So it's going to be a big focus with iOS 27, having this kind of a quasi-hybrid iOS and iPadOS mode directly on this iPhone Ultra. And you might have seen already that people have been kind of hacking their iPhones to be able to run iPadOS, so you have these new windowing modes and things that are happening. And this can be kind of a jailbreaking situation, which I haven't really played with, but there could be a situation where if you open up the new iPhone Ultra and see what's inside, you will have kind of an iPadOS 26-like experience where you could have floating windows, you could have split screen or split view, you could have something like slide over coming into play as well, which would make sense on a display like that. So there's gonna be a lot of multitasking features coming to iOS 27 because of this new iPhone Ultra or iPhone Fold. So iOS 27 is going to be extremely important to the experience of this iPhone Ultra or iPhone Fold because again, even though yes, you can kind of simplify this and say it's going to be an iPhone on the front and an iPad in the middle or on the inside, it's not as easy as just kind of porting those two operating systems into one machine. There's going to be new breakpoints, new split view rules, new compact app layouts, new camera preview modes for foldables, dynamic resizing animations. So there's a bunch of different things that Apple needs to take into consideration for this new form factor and this overall new experience for the end user. Because the last thing you want to do is spend $2,400 on a beautiful piece of hardware where the software just does not match. Sounds familiar? Basically the iPad Pro for the last 8-9 years. And according to what we've heard, Apple is going to refuse to limit the camera module on the rear. So it looks like we're going to get a full pro level camera plateau on the rear of the iPhone Ultra to, again, be part of that $2,400 and that justification for it being $2,400. Because even though, yes, the Fold 7 does have a great triple camera array, it's not going to be the best that Samsung makes. That's been reserved for the Ultra lineup. So Apple's going to do this where all their best camera equipment and camera modules will still be on this foldable iPhone. So a couple other questions we're going to have here, which of course we don't have answers for, is going to be the durability of all this, as well as the battery life. Battery life, depending on how thin they're going to make this, are they going to make this iPhone Air thin, or are they going to or make this more of an iPhone Pro situation where they're going to emphasize battery life and productivity versus thinness and kind of aesthetic? That remains yet to be seen exactly what they're going to do there. And then of course, durability, how many times can this open up? 250 to 300,000 fold cycle target is what people want to have in a foldable phone. But we'll see exactly what that means when it comes to this creaseless design that Apple's putting together. And then how it fits in the iPhone lineup, of course, this is going to be a Halo product. This is going to be the same thing as an Apple Watch Ultra, where you've had the tried and true proven Apple Watch series of before, and then they kind of step it up with the Apple Watch Ultra, which is 2x the price, but gives you way more functionality. So that's the idea that comes with something like an iPhone Ultra or the iPhone Foldable, whatever it's going to end up being called. It's going to fit above the Pro Max level iPhones, below maybe the iPad Pro, somewhere in between, where I do see a world where there's still going to be iPhone users that have a regular iPhone as well as an iPhone Fold as well as an iPad. But let's see exactly where they position this and how they position this. Is this going to be set to replace your iPhone and your iPad, or to supplement both of them in a perfect ecosystem? But that's everything we know so far about this iPhone Ultra. The foldable market is going to be insane in 2026. I, for one, am definitely excited. I'm ready for something to kind of reinvigorate me in the Apple world because, as I was talking about with Jeff in our podcast, this year with Apple, the products have been so good that you just get a little bit numb to how good everything is. Because so far in 2025, it's been a lot of iteration. Nothing has really visually changed. Yes, the software got amazing with iPadOS. We got the iPhone Air. The Pro Max phones look a little bit different. But for the most part, everything just works. And I'm very content with how Apple has kind of positioned their ecosystem. But there hasn't been a wow product. And we haven't really had one since the Vision Pro in early last year. So let's hope that this iPhone Foldable reinvigorates, our love for tech in Apple and see exactly what Apple's been playing with over the last 8 to 9 years. That'll do for this video, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin. Comment down below what you guys think about an iPhone Foldable. Is it worth the hype? Is it worth the trouble? Is it going to be worth $2,400? Are you going to get in line to get one? Or are you going to kind of wait and see and sit back and relax and let us kind of be the guinea pigs for hopefully a cheaper one down the line? But that'll do it, everybody. If you want to watch more videos like this, check out one of these videos right here. Until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace.